large group in LinkedIn and small group I'm trying to get pulled in here for in the Facebook group. So let's just bear with me just a moment here. And I think they're going to be in. They're in. So thanks for showing up 3 days in a row. This is going to be another impactful day. Here's what we're gonna hit today. We're actually going to start to engage with our candidates. We're going to start to talk about what that looks like, what that sounds like, how our mindset shift we've been talking a lot about over the last couple of days, what that's really going to mean and how that comes about. And how we're presenting it. So I'm looking forward to actually getting our hands dirty in here and showing you what it sounds like and what it looks like. In terms of a couple of housekeeping items, I've got a scroll going along the bottom. It's a LinkedIn group. So for you folks that are on the LinkedIn live stream, you can join this group. It's the easiest way to go get the replays. The replays will be up for probably a week or so. If you're in VIP, you get those for the year, but they'll be up there for long enough for you to go back and take a listen, maybe share with your colleagues. So there's a LinkedIn group and a Facebook group, and the Facebook group is hiring sales superstars under the Helix page. So those are the housekeeping issues I wanted to share. I'm also posting some of the other content, some other ideas in those groups. So if you get in there, take a look around, you'll see some other data, some opportunities to go learn a little bit more about some of the details that we didn't dive into with this within the challenge. So that will be helpful. There's another aside. I do a podcast, so it's called Sales and Cigars, and I'm kind of I'm changing that up here, effective in September, and it's going to be Sales and Cigars with CEOs. So if you have a CEO colleague, a friend, somebody that's running your business that wants to have a conversation about sales, it's really what it is. It's a conversation that we walk through, and it's about the things that I enjoy, sales and cigars. So if they're a CEO and they have a passion around cigars, it's perfect. The cigar part is not required. So we talked about the reason for doing this challenge. I mentioned that every day, that I'm trying to help elevate the sales profession and helping business owners get their sales talent and aligned with what they want them to do, so that strategy that the business owners had will be able to be executed by the sales team. Have sales managers that are in place that know how to support, motivate, and coach the sales team. And that's what these tools will allow you to get: salespeople, sales managers, and even sales leaders. We have this dialed in so that if we're looking for that VP of sales or senior sales leader there, that we can look at that, how they think about strategy, how they think about tactics. Do they have those skill sets? And we can help identify that. So today we're gonna dive into the templates. We're gonna dive into the techniques. So one of the things that my team's telling me today, there was a little chat back and forth from some folks that have a little concern about this idea of not sharing. We keep coming back to this, not selling the role, not selling the company, and is that really the right thing to do? And so we'll talk about that. Somebody was concerned about being rude or aggressive. I'm not sure where we got that, so I'd like to address that as we move through this. So one of the things that we're gonna talk about today is how we have these conversations, how we have that phone screen, how we set it up. And I think a way to frame that for everyone is the communication that we have is divided up into three sections, right? And words that we use to communicate, that makes up 7% of what we communicate. It's the smallest portion of how we communicate. So using the right words is important, but it's our body language that has 55% roughly of how we communicate, and then it's our tone, it's how what we're the energy we're bringing to this conversation that makes up 38% or so. So what I'm really saying here, it's not what we say, it's not the words, it's how we deliver those. And there's a couple of ways to think about this. But if we have that, if we're standing up when we're talking to somebody, and there's a lot of salespeople here, there's business owners that have made sales calls, and the idea, if we've got the right energy when we're doing this prospecting call, or when we're having a sales discovery call, like right now, I'm standing. It allows me to have more energy. I have a tendency to use my hands and talk, and I try to keep my hands down below the microphones. They don't keep bumping into it. But that allows us to bring that energy and that emotion in. So being able to, when we're going to have these conversations with the candidates, and you'll hear the phone screen today, that it's really important that we're in the right spot, that we're communicating effectively. So it's words that I'm going to give you, but it's also what you're bringing to that. So that tone comes out of the body language. So if we're up, we got some energy, and in that tone, we can say the same thing in multiple ways. I mean, I can tell somebody to go screw off 6 or 7 different ways. And it sometimes it sounds jovial and fun, and it's like we're with their buddies. And sometimes it could sound serious, right? And it can be aggressive. So we don't want to go there. We want to be on the other side of this. And we want to have this professional, polite approach. And we want that in our tone of our voice. So really think about that. I know in my personal life, I can get into trouble on the home front if I bring the wrong tone to a conversation with my wife. And she's 100% right. I don't necessarily think about it. And when I'm not thinking about it, the wrong tone comes out, and it completely screws up the conversation, completely changes things. So I think that's something that I've learned that the hard way. And I was talking to one of the VIPs yesterday, that we've learned over time that being able to say something in a nurturing fashion, right, is how I was coached early on in my career, is that if you could say whatever you want to somebody to a large extent, but as long as we say it with the right tone and the right presentation, the right energy, so that they know we're coming from the right spot. So I hope that helps frame this up, that where we're going to go with this today is going to sound a little different. It is going to be different. I've been talking about that for the last couple of days. So, and I can tell you that when I had started doing some work with a security firm, and the generalist, the HR person who ran this the HR program and a bunch of other things for the company. She had concerns about how we go about this, and what that looks like, what that sounds like. And it took her a couple of times of listening to how I did it for her to realize, oh, we're not being aggressive, we're not being rude. It's really, this makes things go faster. It's more clear for the candidate. They know what the next step is. I know what the next step is. So there's no danger of miscommunication. So again, today what we're going to talk about is the templates that we use. We have those ready. We build those into our structure so that it saves us time. And you'll see that these templates are short and concise. So we'll have those. The VIPs get a copy of those. What I would suggest is that as I scroll through these slides, if you either scribble it down or take a screenshot as we're talking. This will help you capture them. We're going to talk about a particular type of a predictive assessment. I know there's lots of thoughts about assessments out there. This is the tool that really saves us time in the process of hiring, and we'll get into the details of this a little bit. It's a great tool, and then we're gonna talk about the phone screen. We're gonna kind of give you an example of it, and I'm gonna tell you how the framework works. So those are the objectives for today, and I'm gonna kind of just jump right into it. So again, here's an opportunity for you to take do a screenshot or take some notes. But the templates that we use are used for emails, and when we engage with this prospect. So let's just assume that we've written the job posting the way the way we've talked about it, and we have used that framework, and we start to get some resumes coming in, and we start to get some folks maybe from LinkedIn or from Indeed. And right now, Indeed is sort of the leader for that sales role that is sort of under that $350,000 role, right? You know, we fit into that. Most of our sales positions are in that 100 to 100 $250,000, and there's a lot of success happening on Indeed, and it fluctuates a little bit between LinkedIn and Indeed, but what we found is that LinkedIn is a great way to go out and tell your network. It's a great way to share that you're hiring and let people know. But you know, to advertise on LinkedIn, we found that it's a little bit more expensive. Indeed gives you some flexibility with some things that you can do to get some screening questions and to make sure that they follow your instructions properly. Excuse me. So even if you're using an applicant tracking system, or I'll refer to as an ATS, this process, the platform that I'm going to show you, integrates with quite a few ATS programs, and then we have some Chrome extensions, allows things to go back and forth, but it integrates well. So if you're using one of those, don't worry. And these templates work really great just to go right in there and shoot out. If you're not using an ATS, Outlook and Gmail, we just save these templates and pop them in and out as we go. So again, there's 9 of these, and you can see that they're in sort of buckets where we're opening things up. So if we've gone out to LinkedIn, if we've gone out to our network, if we've gone out and looked at Indeed and searching for somebody with specific criteria that we deem important. So there's a template just for that to be able to use, and that's one we'll go through here. There's a couple of just like, hey, you know, thanks for reaching out, let's talk. You know, those are just sort of the next steps, and then these series of congratulatory emails that just say, hey, we're taking it to the next level, and those are great for a candidate to get into their in their inbox, and they see that they've made it to the next step. So this template is for the one that where you've decided that you think they might be a good fit, and you're sort of inviting them into the process. You want them to follow your direction, but you've deemed them a fit, and we want to send this out. So this is a real simple text that allows them to go look at a job posting and dive into the process that we want them to follow. So if you've gone out, looked on Indeed, if you've gone to your network, if you've asked your employees to get involved, which is a great way to get people that, you know, will understand the culture, they'll have a little leg up on what's really going on in the organization, because somebody within the company, within the culture, thinks that they might be a fit. So I'll kind of just pause here. Like, one of the ways to do that is you give the employee, you ask them for your help, and you tell them you have a process, and you tell them about your steps that you want them to the candidates to follow, and all you're asking your employees to do is to keep their ear to the ground, to pay attention to their friends and family and colleagues in their network, of the people that they interact with within your company, your vendors and suppliers. And you tell them, if hey, we're hiring people. Do you know somebody? Just a simple statement like that, right? If they're at a barbecue or at a dinner party, or they're just at an event, they ask that. If you give them what I call a spiff, something small but appreciative, like a gift card to go out to dinner, like an American Express card that's worth 30, 40, $50, that probably $50 these days for somebody to go out to dinner with their spouse. um, and you just give that to them for introducing somebody to the process, right? That encourages them. And we want to give them the criteria we're looking for. We want to make sure that's good, that they understand. And we want them to understand that this person isn't automatically going to come into the company, that they got to run through the process. And then at the end, what we like to make sure that the employee understands is that if this person is hired and sticks around for a period of time, 30 days, 90 days, whatever that is, that they get a little bigger stipend. Maybe it's a check for $300 or $500, and it's sort of a big deal. It's presented to them for like bringing in the new Stephanie, the new salesperson, and we're presenting to Bob, our loyal employee, this check for introducing Stephanie to the organization. It sort of builds that culture thing, makes everybody feel like a team, and it allows you to expand that network. So that's just a little tip. So this is the kind of email that we would send out to that in that situation. Here's a couple of thank yous for getting back to me. We're interested in taking the next step. Thanks for sending your resume. Can we talk? Right? Whatever the appropriate context is, we have a template for it. And it's not brain surgery here, right? But we have these done. They're easy to just copy and paste in. And if you notice something about all these templates, they are short, simple, to the point. We're not wasting a lot of time. It's not verbose. And, most of these are like a couple of sentences long. So, thanks for applying. Can we talk? Right. This is when a more traditional path, hey, we would love to see you, to do a phone screen with you. And what we're looking for with a phone screen, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but we're with the phone screen, we want them to do certain things, right? With the phone screen, we want them to be prepared. So we set an appointment with them, a calendar invite. We want to make sure they accept that invite. So we want to make sure that they have we have their email address that works, and we want to make sure that we have their telephone number, because we're going to place that phone call, not them. And then we're going to tell them that we want them to have in that calendar invite, we're going to tell them we want them to have the job posting in front of them, because we're going to ask them questions about it. So this is a important step that is part of this template. So if you're not copying down the language, something you want to make note of. With the phone screen, we want to tell them in advance that they need to have the job posting, whatever or they got it from Indeed or LinkedIn, wherever you posted it. So that's scheduled in here. And then we just have a couple of additional email templates here that allow you to simply get them they're going to the next level, that we'd like to do the follow-up interview. We'd like to schedule the interview. We'd like to do the video interview, right? And these, again, very simple. You're just trying to leave enough time for somebody to take a quick screenshot of these if they so desire. So I hope those templates are designed to help you save time, be consistent, and all we're doing is plugging in dates and times and names. It's really that simple. We use our CRM system to send these emails out and to track our candidate hires when we're working with a client. We have a process built into our CRM that allows us to track this, and it's just really all the data is loaded in there. We have their resumes and their assessment and the notes. And then when we're all done, if they come to the final interview and we're going to make them an offer, have one spot where all the data is. right? So if you have an applet tracking system, that's great. If you don't, CRM sometimes work for that. So the who does what worksheet. Let me stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to go to sharing another screen that will allow you to see this whole document over here. Here we go. So this is we find it helpful for clients that are just going about changing their this approach. They're moving into the STAR process, and there's a couple of people involved in the process, right? There might be a sales manager who's involved. There might be an HR, an office admin person, right? There might be some other folks that are part of the interview process. So what this document is designed to do is who does what and when. And this can be used in a variety of different ways. It can be used to like just document this on the front end so everybody knows what they're supposed to do. It can be kept on a server and updated as somebody moves along. We use it, we've built this into our CRM so that the steps are all identified and we know when something's been done. But you can see here there's a few steps involved. So just some of the logistics here to think about. Who's posting the ads, where are those going? Who's responsible for the email templates, right? When an assessment is received, like what happens next? Who's doing that? So there's some things to contemplate here, and this process that we've planned it out. We've identified all the spots where we're clients need a little support. This document will help you understand all of the steps that you would want to consider. And you might not do all of these, but they're all there. There's more here than you may need, but it's thorough, it's robust. So and it goes past the hiring process. It goes into the onboarding piece. If you notice here that we're talking about their goals for the first or second week, they're talking about who's going to tell them what in the hiring process. So again, I will post this in the Facebook groups. You can take the screenshots of it if you like, but I think this is an important piece to make sure that we know what's going to happen and what the next steps are. So let's go back to the screen, the slides. So if there's any questions about any of this, feel free to put a note in the chat. But we're gonna keep moving forward here. And what I want to talk about now is sort of I call it the magic of the STAR process. And it's a tool. It's called a predictive assessment. So let's talk a little bit about assessments. And I think that what the question we want to ask ourselves is, what are we trying to measure with our assessment? What's important? What is this assessment going to do for us? What information is it going to give us? So I'll tell you a story. I worked for a company that required everybody who was employed after they were hired to take this assessment, and it was a predictive index. And what it did was help management, it helped each other understand how we communicated. It helped us understand how we think and the best way to manage folks within the organization. And the company was real serious about this. It had everybody's assessment results that were put in a big binder, and that big binder was accessible to everybody. We just had to go into the office manager's office and say, "Hey, I want to look at Rick's assessment." And we'd all been trained on what it meant. We'd all been given an overview, but the office manager was knowledgeable about it. So there was usually a conversation like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you trying to figure out?" And this gave us great insight to understand what was going on. So the situation I was in, we'd be in a leadership meeting sitting around the conference room, and the owner would go around the table and ask, so, hey, this is an issue. What do you think? And he would go around everybody at the leadership table, and he would skip over this one gentleman every time. And it was just went around him and went to the next person. And this happened a couple of months in a row. And I didn't really understand it because, it'd come to me, I'd give him my thoughts, and it's like, hey, I'm basing this on my gut or I'm basing this on facts. But I was free to give him my thoughts. And after the meeting that second month, I went to him and said, well, what's going on with him? How come he doesn't ever answer? And more importantly, you never ask him. And he's like, oh, let's go look at his assessment. And it was interesting that we understood that this man had the need he had to go think about what was asked of him. If it was anything other than like a quick yes or no type question, he needed some time to process. He needed some time to really put some thought into it to feel confident about his answer. And that was just something that we needed. And it frustrated the crap out of me because I would go to him. He was the head of the research department. He was an engineer. And I'd go ask him what I thought was a simple question. Does the thing do this? And he would give me either some smart ass answer or, not be able to really dig into what I'm trying to get to. So once I understood how he thought and what he needed to be able to be confident and give an answer, it made sense, right? Whether I like it or not is different. But the fact is I understood it, and it made the communication piece easier and more. We were more effective because we didn't expect people to do things that they couldn't do. That wasn't fair to ask them to do. So there's a variety of different assessments out there. You have things like Wonderlic, who's looking at people's intellect and if their intelligence, and this is important for certain types of roles, especially around sales. If we have a technical thing, can somebody manage the high-end data that's coming through and process all of that and be smart enough to go through that? The other sort of that's cognitive abilities. I think Caliper is another one that people's probably heard of. And then things like Myers-Briggs and DISC are personality assessments. And these are great for giving us insight into individuals and how to manage them, how to talk to them, what's important to them. These are all terrific assessments. And, then you have like PI and Acumax or behavioral. And these give us similar findings to personality assessments. So again, all great stuff. But when it comes to salespeople, when it comes to their approach to sales, what they're doing, and they're all the behavioral and personalities are loosely based on DISC's findings. That's sort of a fundamental piece. And if when they're looking at salespeople, and there's often they're pretty accurate, but what they're doing is benchmarking what that individual does in a social situation and saying that they would be a good fit or a bad fit for a sales role. It's a data point. It's a piece of information that has some level of accuracy, but it's a benchmark. So what I mean by benchmarking is if somebody's good at a networking event, if somebody's good at a cocktail party, and they're an extrovert and they can go work the room and they can go around and have conversations and be the life of the party. All right. My wife has a coworker who's great at schmoozing and moving around and being the life of the party. But his role is to go do some business development work, and he's kind of sucks at that. And that's because he's great at those social behaviors, but when it comes to coming to the office on a Monday morning and picking up the phone and making some dials, or going out and engaging somebody and having a prospecting conversation and doing strong discovery and consultative work, there's a disconnect there because of the benchmarking component. So I think they have a place. I think they're great The other thing about assessments is that some people just like, oh, we don't do assessments, they're illegal, gets people into trouble. And I'd like to kind of dissuade people from that way of thinking. Assessments are not illegal. Some companies don't want to deal with them because they don't address them um, properly. So, from an EEOC perspective, from a DEI perspective, we want everybody to be treated the same. So, if we say to somebody, and this is why STAR is a EEOC compliant, and our language has been tested when we go through and have our questions have been analyzed by DEI experts, and we had to change one question. We had to change the language of the question so that it came out a little bit softer. But otherwise, we were right on par. But the idea is that we treat everybody the same in the hiring process. So people that are using STAR have a documented process, and we tell them that everybody's treated the same because they all take the assessment at this point. Everybody that goes through this process has this assessment, and it's the results are available, and we follow the results. So we'll get into the results in a second, but the objective here is that this assessment is predictive of sales success. And predictive, I mean that we've got every 5 years we have a psychologist come through and evaluate and do all the data and the amount of work that goes into this. It's mind-boggling. But every 5 years we come back and they validate our findings. So we have that document if anybody wants to see it, the validation of it. And it's a great way to evaluate any assessment as to the validity documentation that they have. But the predictiveness has a variable to it. And over the last 29 years, it varies from being 91 to 92% successful at predicting success of a salesperson. And success means, the way we define it, is that salesperson will rise to the top half of your sales organization within a year. So if they're recommended by the assessment, and we've configured it all correctly, they will rise to the top 0.5% with a 92% predictive accuracy. The other side of that coin, which I find actually more interesting, is that if somebody goes ahead and hires somebody that we're saying this is not a good fit, and I've had this struggle with clients, 75% of the people that are hired that are said not recommended, those folks fail in 6 months. And the sad thing with that is that they've been hired. We recognize that they're not going to work out, and they keep them anyway, which costs even more money. So by using this tool, it gives us this ability to navigate in a predictive fashion. Nothing's perfect, but this is a pretty accurate, pretty strong 92, 91% is a strong. I'm going to flip to so we can look at this document a little bit more carefully. Here we go. So we can look at this information. So the assessment report comes back, and we have some criteria up at the top, and then we have some findings below. And some of you may be familiar with this. Helix is a certified partner with Objective Management Group, so that's how OMG goes to market. So there's some criteria here. There's 29 pages of this report. I'm showing you the simple version of this. There's a lot of detail behind it. The VIPs get a full copy of this, but this will give you a little snapshot of what we're looking at. And we're able to provide a score out of 100. So this person is recommended with a score of 98. They're recommended here clearly. It says that they have ideal ramp-up skills. So there's two criteria here that it can meet OMG's criteria, where we have these 21 core competencies, and they've scored well enough to meet that criteria. And we have some minimums that they must hit to be able to do that. And then this is the interesting part. We can dial this in for your role. So if you got a hunter role that they must hunt, and they must hunt for big dollars, and they must hunt in the C-suite, right? We can dial this all in, and we can dial it into the type of pricing that you have, and the complexity of the role, the complexity of the sale, the amount of resistance that they're going to reach, and how you want them to think about this, right? So there's a whole section on creating a role specification that's designed for this, that helps us provide a criteria for you. So they might meet OMG's criteria. They're a good salesperson, but we've raised the bar as a client because we're looking for something a little bit more special. We want a little bit more, so we can define whether they hit that target or not. So in a broad sense here, we divide up our findings into three categories. The will to sell. Think about it as the grit. And the most important category here is commitment and desire. Those are the top two. So what does that commitment mean? Are they committed to doing whatever it takes within the bounds of being ethical to close business? Do they have the desire to be in sales? Is that, we can measure that by the number of the types of questions that we ask. We're looking at their outlook as to how they're seeing the world right now. Sometimes this comes back where somebody's looking for a job or unhappy in a job and their outlook might be weak, right? But we can identify that and start to deal with that and ask questions around that in the interview process. Responsibility. This is something that I struggled with early on, believing that this was 100% accurate. And I made mistakes, right? Like questioning that this was accurate. And soon as I hired this person, it was 3 weeks later, he started making the excuses, because that's what responsibility means. They make excuses rather than saying, I screwed up discovery. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't really get their budget straight, right? So those lead to excuses. Motivation, we look at whether they're motivated, but how they're motivated. Intrinsically, extrinsically, or intrinsically, or altruistically, right? And it's altruistically is folks that you don't want on your sales team. You might want them on your customer service team, because they're going to be a big advocate for your customers to the detriment of your pricing. So that's the will to sell. Really hard to change. If somebody doesn't have this, you're going to be, I look at it as it's next to impossible to change that in an individual. Sales DNA. Think about this as what's going on in their mind, what's going on in their head. Some people call it head trash. How do we get in our own way? These 6 findings are that. So the doesn't need approval. Like this is their need to be liked, right? So if they have a 75, they need to be liked a little bit, is what that means, right? Because the question's framed in the negative. So they need to be liked a little bit, and it gets in a way. It's not a strength. It's a little bit of a weakness. Can they stay in the moment, right? What that means is their ability to stay with the questions, to deal with whatever the prospect's giving them without getting emotional. There's another one here called the supportive buy cycle, which is interesting, that how you buy something is directly correlated to what you will accept as a salesperson. So if you go out to buy something like a laundry machines or a car, not a house, but something, something that is substantial, that you're going to use in your house, that there's lots of competition out there. How you go about buying that will dictate what you're willing to accept from somebody when they're going about buying something. So what that translates to is, I bought a car a couple years ago, and I made a phone call after I rode in a car that I thought was really cool, and I was in the market. So I called up the guy I know that sells cars, and I said, hey, I'm looking for this. I want this package, and I kind of like these couple colors. He's like, give me a couple of days. And he calls me and said, hey, your car's in the parking lot. Wasn't the first car I bought from him. I'm like, all right, I'll be there on Saturday. And I looked at the car, walked around it, sat in it. It was the same thing that I felt before, had the same package, went in and signed the papers and bought the car. I mean, that's just, I didn't do a lot of research because I knew what I wanted. Other people will do a ton of research. They'll go out and um, look at every store. They'll go out, go shopping. They'll go online and do things. Nothing wrong with that, right? It's how somebody processes, but it will get in their way of accepting. Let me think about that, Mr. Salesperson. That's great, but I need to go shopping, right? And somebody like, oh yeah, that makes sense if they have a low supportive buy cycle. Their ability to discuss money, right? If they have that and you sell a high ticket item, going to be a problem. If they have that in combination of need to be liked, wow, they're really going to struggle to ask the right questions. And handling objections is really about handling rejection is really about their ability to recover from somebody telling them no. Does it take them a day? Does it take them an hour? Does it take them 3 months? Right? This is a problem for salespeople if it takes a while to recover. The tactical findings here are what you think about it when you think about sales skills, right? If you want a hunting role, they better be a damn good hunter. If you need somebody that's going to have a complex B2B sale, they better be able to be consultative in the process. They better be able to sell value. They need to be able to qualify. Now, this is weird. Everybody asks me this question like, wow, his closing skills is awful, and he still is highly recommended. So the way we look at that is if you do all of these other things really well, you go out there and hunt, you're talking to the right people, you can build a relationship, you can sell consultatively, you can talk about value, and you qualify the crap out of people. The closing usually takes care of itself because you're not talking to the wrong people. You're not talking to them about things that they can't buy because you've qualified them. So the closing score is probably the lowest rated finding here. It's important, it's interesting, but it's not a do or die. So then we also look at some other findings here that, whether they're coachable or they're figure it out factor, how long they're likely to be with you, and then there are some other findings that we find interesting. And then, do they have any intangibles, right? Do they have a lot of recognition in your marketplace? Are they well known, right? And these are just things that are aside. We're just giving data points here. So there's a lot of information here. We're not going to go through all of this, but I did want to share this tool. And the cool thing about the tool is that it gives you all this data to go poking around when you're doing an interview, right? And this document actually gives you questions that you can ask a candidate during the interview process to validate your findings, for you to be sure about these things. And it gives you the question, and it gives you the let me just cancel out of this. It gives you the answer that you're likely to hear because it's a weakness, so that you have some way to sort of correlate the data and confirm and deny. So that's the assessment tool. I think of it as the magic of the process because it shortens the cycle. I went through the 92 and the 75% validity. We have this validity rating that I'm happy to share with people if they want to read a big old document. So the tool shortens the cycle. It makes it really clear, like, because we don't want to talk to people that are going to be a waste of our time, and that's what this does. And we put it at the front. As soon as we get a resume, everybody gets it. Everybody gets. They take it online. It takes them 45 minutes at most. We tell them if they spend 47 minutes, they're wasting time. The first answer that comes to your mind is usually the honest and right answer to provide. So is it a test? Is it a step that they have to do? Do some people not want to do it? Absolutely. Some people like, I don't want to jump through this hoop. I don't want to do this. So the question I ask a client at that point is like, if we're going to ask them to do something when they're supposed to be on their best behavior, when they're looking for something from us, how are they going to behave when we want them to make 25 outbound calls every day and go see 12 people every week, right? That is sort of indicative of what you might see in the process of how they really operate. So I want that to be clear that it is by design a step there that we that we understand, but it's EEOC compliant because everybody's getting treated the same way. And I'll have some links to some things that you can go do. You can try these. You can um, get a free sample, right? There's lots of things we can do to help you understand this. So phone interviews. Let's jump to the phone interview. Um, here's how we do a phone interview. It is designed. I do them like I block out 4 of them in an hour. I block myself 15 minutes for a call that should take me 10 or less minutes. And I call them. I schedule this call with them. Everybody gets a calendar invite. Um, I frame the call with the candidate on when I open it up, and you'll see the language I use um, in a moment. But what I'm trying to do here is put some pressure on the candidate early in the process. I want to see, can they think on their feet? How do they behave when they're on their heels? Right? I'm taking the control of this interview from the giddy up. I want to hear how they think. I'm asking specific questions that I'll show you what those are and how I score those, so that there is some objectivity to this. There's some ways to make notes on this. If somebody really does a great job or does a terrible job, it's all there. So um, let me show you again, this is the mindset here. We're looking for the steps is that there's an introduction to this. I'll show you this. Then I'm looking to understand their experience with the criteria that we're looking for. I'm asking questions to see if they match up with what I described in the ad. And I'm going to ask them to tell me that. I'm going to ask them to share with me how they think they match up to the ad. How familiar are they with my marketplace that I'm looking for them to step into? Do they have any ability to build rapport? Are they friendly? Do they have a professional demeanor about them on the phone, right? Did I wake them up? I literally had a call with a candidate a couple of weeks ago. It's 10:30 in the morning. Call the guy. I woke him up 10:30 in the morning. No joke. And I said, we had an interview. You accepted the invitation. He goes, no, that's not me. I'm like, all right, thanks. Right. So I saved myself about 9 minutes because I got off the phone real quick. And he reached back out later that afternoon once he realized he screwed up, trying to get back into the fold. But that was a deal breaker for me. So we're looking at how they handle some objections and some of their technical experience. So we're really referencing the job posting in the ad, and I'm asking them that on the front end. I've told them I want them to have the job posting because I'm going to relate all of this to them. So the script is really this. Hey, I'm going to pretend I'm calling a guy named John. So hey John, it's Walter Crosby. I'm phoning about the position you applied for at ABC Company. This will be a really quick call because I got several candidates I need to speak to today, and I'm only going to bring in 3, and I'm talking to 6. So what the goal of this call is for me to figure out if you're going to be one of those 3. So you ready? Now I can do that in lots of different energy. I can do that with different tone, but I want it to be friendly. I want it to be relaxed. I want them to understand this is my phone call and I'm going to ask questions, right? But I want to see how they react. So that's you can take a screenshot of that, but that's really the script that I use. And the numbers vary, right? 6 to 3, 4 to 8, whatever it is, right? And it doesn't really matter because I'm talking to those 4, and I'm just trying to get them to understand that they need to be on their game, so to speak. So let me share this this actual tracking tool that I use for scoring. So this is real simple. I have the script up at the top, so I can share this with a client and they can plug and play what they need to put into this. I have the job posting highlighted because that's where I actually insert the job posting, because during the course of a day, if I'm calling for clients, I might be calling this hour for this company, and then this hour I might be calling for a different company. So I need that quick little review for myself. I'm looking to see if they have that rapport, that warmth. Can they articulate really well? Are they struggling to talk like I am right now? Right, but can they be real crisp and clear and with their answers? So I'm just circling those, and then at the end I'll come back and give them a point for that. So, first question, do you have your job posting? Yes or no? And I actually take a point away if they can't follow directions. And if you go through here and you can see that these questions all have to do with the ad and what I've asked for. And again, these can be modified a little bit based on your specific criteria, but all I'm trying to figure out is can this person follow directions? Can they articulate? Are they familiar with the job posting? Are they one of those people that are just peppering everybody with resumes? And can they convince me that they have a decent presence on the phone? And then I have it at the bottom. I do ask a couple of questions sometimes around their sales cycle to kind of make sure that we have somewhat of a fit. And at the bottom, I have the script that I use to um, to explain what's going to happen next, right? So it's like, I'm thanking them for their time. That's all I really need today. Appreciate what you taking the time. Here's what's going to happen next. If you hear from me or my assistant by Thursday with an email, you will have made it to the next step. If you don't hear from me, you didn't make the cut, and I wish you well. And then I pause just for a moment because I want to see if they try to get some question in. I want to see if they do something or if they're just going to be really passive, right? And I'm looking for that. Like, hey, well, so how did I do? Or what's what happens if I don't make it, or what happens if I do make it, right? They just give me something, then that tells me that they're interested. They have that desire to move a little further and a little faster. And then and then I'm done. I can get 4 of those done in an hour. I think that's it's efficient. The other thing that I do with those is I will tell the candidate at the front end. So if you give me the answer that I'm looking for, I might interrupt you. That helps me stop the rambling and helps me keep control of the call. So if you get the answer that I think I'm looking for, I might interrupt you so we can move on, so we can be respectful of each other's time. You okay with that? Right? And I get them to accept that, I'm not trying to be pushy and rude, but we got a job to do here. We want to get through this. So I think that's the essence of the phone screen. And this process is designed to save time. It's designed to talk to the people that are likely to be successful with your organization. So if you have questions around that, if you have concerns, again, body language, tone, really, really important here to make sure that um, we're going about this professionally and politely, but it's really about control. And if you think about a sales process, when we're talking to a prospect, we're looking to gain control of this conversation. We're looking to understand things, and this process parallels that, because we're trying to qualify and disqualify candidates quickly. We don't want to waste their time, and we don't want to waste our time. And we want them to be clear about the picture. So if I get somebody past the phone screen where we go into the interviews, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow at length, we have some structured questions we're going to talk about. And some of you probably have great questions you already asked your candidates. We're going to show you some that take away bias. And we all have bias. It is what it is. But we want to try to minimize that with some objectivity in our questions. I like to think about interviews with testing a salesperson as to how they think about sales. Do they have the business acumen to understand their prospects? Do they understand their current customers well enough, right? Can they explain to me why they're a customer? Can they explain to me how that customer makes money? Can they explain to me that they have that business acumen that we're going to need in our role, because we're selling a B2B complex sale most of the time. And our sales cycles could range anywhere from 30 to 12 months, 30 days to 12 months. And, we want to make sure that they can stick through that. So questions get tailored to the job and the role that we're trying to fill. But I'm going to throw some ideas at you. I'm going to give you some sample questions tomorrow. We'll review anything else that pops up. So if you got questions, let me know. We covered a lot. Those templates just make things go easier and faster and allow our team to handle details that so that we don't have to, right? Where they just know the steps and we document all of this. The assessment's a wonderful tool. If you're using assessments, that's great. This one we use a little bit differently. It's another data point. Phone screens. I just find them as a great way, and that's all we're doing, screening people before we spend some time with them. The interviews that I like to do are 60 to 90 minutes long on the front end. I break them up into some pieces. We'll get into that tomorrow. But, this is all designed to get it right, to not waste time, and to be as predictive as possible. So appreciate everybody's attention. Going to let class out a couple of minutes early. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget to go look at the LinkedIn groups and the Facebook groups as a place to go get replays and some other cool stuff I'm dropping in there so that you have some additional materials. So thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Look forward to it. Bye-bye.